Now we will be hearing remarks from His Excellency Mr. Qubad Talabani, representative to Kurdistan Regional Government to the United States. Please.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Excellency Ambassador, friends. I want to thank everybody for attending this somber occasion and thank the Iraqi Cultural Center for partnering with us in hosting this commemoration. And I want to personally thank His Excellency the Ambassador for his remarks, and I fully support them. As we know, on March 16th, 1988, the tragedy of Halabja happened. We'll look at the life of a young girl whose life changed forever when her city was attacked with the bombs and chemical weapons by Saddam's regime. This unconscious girl was taken to a makeshift hospital in Iran, where she was treated for severe burn injuries. When she regained consciousness, she was told that her entire family had died except for one sister. Today marks the 24th anniversary of one of the worst atrocities committed by Saddam against the Kurds. Thousands of men, women and children were instantly killed. Many others died in the following weeks from severe injuries sustained in the attack. Today, when people mention the city of Halabja, they immediately associate it with this tragedy. Yet, what many people do not know is that the city and its residents have a rich history and tradition full of art, music and poetry. Halabja was a lively and bustling town, and it was a thriving center of trade. It was also a culturally rich city where there were many active musical, theatrical and dance performance groups. My late grandfather, Ibrahim Ahmed, served as a lawyer in Halabja, and he used to recount stories to us of his time there, and in particular the town's bustling markets and its unrivaled produce, particularly its pomegranates. Kurds continue to revere the poetry of Ahmed Mukhtar Jaf, whose poetry had a patriotic spirit, condemning the suppression of our people. And of course Abdullah Goran, widely regarded as one of the pioneers of modern Kurdish literature. They were both from Halabja. A well-known historical figure from Halabja was a woman named Adila Khanum, who was married to Osman Pasha, the ruler over Halabja during the Ottoman Empire. Adila Khan was such a strong and capable leader that she increasingly took on her husband's responsibilities and eventually took over many functions of administrating the city of Halabja. She was known as a just ruler. She was a patron of the arts and held a gathering every day to listen to the cares and concerns local residents faced. But Halabja's standing as this lively, culturally rich community suffered considerably, particularly during Saddam's rule and particularly during the Iran-Iraq war, given Halabja's proximity to Iran. The town's suffering culminated in what was the worst, but certainly not the only chemical weapons attack against the Kurdish towns and villages. For on that day, as the city emptied out and the survivors fled the assault and looked for safety, many people became temporarily blind and others became hysterical from the chemicals. Children were separated from their parents, and many have still not been reunited to this day. The residents of Halabja were displaced for several years, and many only returned after '91, when the uprising occurred. According to a survey conducted by the Sulaimania Governorate, and this is only in 5 main districts of Sulaimania, including the district of Halabja, the Ba'ath regime of Saddam Hussein destroyed 617 schools, 165 health institutions, 101,000 residential buildings, and 41 drinking water facilities, and this is just before '91. But the past 24 years has shown that the people of Halabja are incredibly resilient. The young girl that I mentioned at the beginning of our story is today striving to help those individuals who suffered during the chemical attacks. She's very involved in organizations dedicated to addressing the needs of the victims there. To this day, despite the communal suffering and loss, the residents of Halabja, with the support of the Kurdistan regional government, have made significant gains in rebuilding that city. In the past 3 years, Kurdistan regional government has allocated over $250 million for the reconstruction of service projects in Halabja, including its sub-districts and villages. The projects include building schools, roads, sports facilities, drinking water supply networks and facilities, parks, health centers, equipping those health centers with medical equipment, building markets, and sanitation and residential units. Today, visitors to Halabja will again find a lively city, with schools, colleges, government institutions, markets, residential units, and public parks. And each year, our government keeps providing financial support to rebuild that infrastructure and to secure medical treatment for chemical burn victims, which are ongoing. However, despite the increased growth and social and economic reconstruction of Halabja, the people's spiritual wounds were not healed until they saw the former Iraqi regime officials who made the decisions to chemically bombard them face justice after 2003. The victims of chemical attacks in Halabja were even more consoled when the contributor to Saddam's regime in creating the chemicals also faced justice. Frans van Anrad, a businessman who bought chemicals on the world market and sold them to Saddam's regime, was sentenced to 15 years in a Dutch court. This court also ruled that Saddam committed genocide against the people of Halabja. We asked the Iraqi government to take legal action against other suppliers of chemicals used to kill the guiltless civilians of Halabja. A US-based organization, the Kurdistan National Congress of North America, filed a lawsuit in April of 2009 against chemical companies such as VWR International, Thermo Fisher Scientific, and Alcalac, who all provided materials to Saddam during that time. Their efforts, unfortunately, which were initially aimed at ensuring compensations for the victims of the chemical attacks, have halted due to financial restrictions. Going forward, though, it is important to us and the people of Halabja that we continue to support those who have suffered tremendous loss and have continued to deal with the many medical and health problems. The Iraqi tribunal ordered that compensation be provided to the victims of the chemical attacks. So it is now time that this court order intended to provide some form of justice and redress to the victims of the attack be implemented. We also call on the global community to continue to treat the residents of Halabja for the negative health consequences that they still suffer. Furthermore, it is important for scholars, politicians, international bodies to follow the lead of the Iraqi tribunals in recognizing the Anfal campaign against the Kurds as a genocide. Finally, we hear a lot of commentators talk about despotic regimes losing legitimacy for attacking their own citizens these days. We heard it in Libya before the fall of Gaddafi. We're now hearing it in Syria as government forces are cracking down on armed insurrections. If we used today's barometer of what it takes for a government to lose legitimacy and apply it to Halabja, then it is truly a travesty that so many years after the Halabja massacre and the genocide in particular, as well as the genocide carried out in the south of Iraq against the Marsh Arabs and against the general Shia population there, that many governments around the world continued to deal with Saddam. Some even considered him an ally. I believe there was even that infamous quote by the then UN Secretary General Kofi Annan that Saddam was somebody that he could do business with. I will tell you that Iraq, the Middle East, and the wider world is a better place now that Saddam is gone. Talk about losing legitimacy. As the fog of the US's war of liberation in Iraq clears, and the country finds its feet amidst its new political dynamics, there are many things that Americans can be proud of when they look at their efforts after removing Saddam. You could look no further than in Iraq's Kurdistan region, today a bustling, thriving society with a burgeoning economy and booming industries. Listen to the calls of many in the Arab world who are now wanting greater powers to come in help rid them of their own despots. Watch as new governments in Libya, Egypt, Tunisia are conversing with their Iraqi counterparts, asking their guidance on how Iraq went through its transition from dictatorship to a more representative form of government. And while I will admit that in Iraq, including Kurdistan, we still have a ways to go, I'm certain that with continued support and engagement from partners like the United States, Iraq, with Kurdistan leading the way, can overcome its political teething pains, continue to remind the rest of the world that the removal of Saddam's regime was not just the right thing to do, but given a dose of reliving some of those atrocities today, it must be absolutely clear that it was the only thing to do. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for attending today.